Welcome back to Advent of Tess. Today we are looking at one of my more popular rediscoveries. Yes, other people have found this pattern too, of lens stars. So this is a gorgeous little pattern that makes this hexagon outline around a open hexagon hole. And so we've got the open hexagon, we've got the rhombi off of the pleats of that hexagon, and then the closed triangle outside of them. And in this situation, this tiling, the hexagon's in a position of sixfold rotational symmetry. The rhombus is in a position of twofold rotational symmetry, and the triangle ends up being in a position of threefold rotational symmetry when we extend the pattern further out. So here everything is in its highest symmetry. But it becomes harder to fold because there's not as good of tiling breaks. So when you're on the 16-fold grid, you can't tell what has good tiling breaks further out. But this tiling where we have the hexagon, rhombus, triangle, rhombus, that ends up being much more difficult further out because there's no good resting places, unless you use a few tips and tricks like I teach in Tessellations by Tiles. But let's jump in. I'm going to choose for this one to make the hexagon on the back. So I'll flip my paper to the smoother grid line side and start just like we have been for the open hexagon with a pleat one spacing up from the corner of our grid. And I will pass that pleat off to my left hand, grab the next one, and fold it up, pass, grab, fold, pass, grab, fold, and fold my way all the way around this open hexagon puffy star. Once I've got it, I can squash it. And yes, I am moving quickly, and there is a pause button. You can rewind and watch as many times as you like. All right, so with that hexagon in place, we're going to flip over. And the key thing with this tessellation is that our lines from the hexagon go two spacings before they meet the corner of the rhombus, and they meet the fat corner of the rhombus. So goes two spacings before it meets the corner of the rhombus. That will be this point, and I can go ahead and draw my central diamond on here. So it's meeting the fat corner, which means that I've got a 60-degree angle between this pleat and my valley fold. I'm not on the through line, which means that the pleat paired with the valley is the through line. And so I can go ahead and set up that twist. And notice here I've got another diagonal pleat, just like the one coming from the hexagon, on the other side. And squash. So how does this get me to the next twist? Well, the triangle here is right next to the corner of the rhombus. And so the center of my triangle is going to be one spacing out from the pointy end of my rhombus, setting up that triangle twist. Now is on, so since we know this triangle is threefold rotationally symmetric and it's set up on the through line of the previous rhombus, that means it's leading to the through line of the next rhombus, and then we shift the diagonal one spacing to the right and can set up both twists at once. Here, instead of immediately having the triangle ready to squash, I'm going to let that free pleat float closed so I have a stable surface to press on while I squash my rhombus. Then I'll float that free pleat back open and squash the triangle. Then I'll rotate and continue again. Once more, that triangle center is going to be one spacing out along the through line of the rhombus. It itself is going to be the through line of the next three-way intersection. And notice what my paper is trying to do here. It's trying to make a chicken foot. But we don't want a chicken foot. We want an X. And so we've got our through line coming from the triangle. We've got our diagonals on either side of the central diamond. We'll let our triangle lay down flat while we squash the rhombus, and then open it to squash the triangle once our rhombus is in place. Next up, we'll do it again. So my triangle positioning tells me the location of my through line of the rhombus, which lets me put that in and then open up the triangle to squash that and continue on around and around and around we go, where we'll stop on the 6th repeat. And squash the next rhombus, open the triangle. And here we're starting to get into this pleat overlap territory. So I'll start by setting up exactly as we have been. Run that through line through, except this time the through line doesn't get all the way to the edge of the paper. It runs into a pleat, one spacing along the through line from the tip of a rhombus. Well, that needs to be a triangle. And so I can set up all three of these twists, and I'll still squash the rhombus first. So I'll pause here for just a moment. I've got triangle, rhombus, triangle set up. If I want to know where the rhombus is, I set up the two triangles, and then my free pleat on the rhombus needs to be one spacing off from the pleat coming in from the hexagon. And one of these triangles I can freely lay down while I squash the rhombus. If I laid down the other one, it would either be above or below the rhombus. Then I'll squash each triangle in turn. And there you have it, lens stars. It's a very pretty little tessellation seed, whether backlit or frontlit. So tomorrow, I'm going to show you how you can use open triangles in the same kind of setting just by shifting the rhombi out one spacing further. That's all. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow, and happy folding. See you there.